and welcome back to my channel. I'm Helen and today I'm going to be talking about my August TBR. I'm kind of nervous to film this video because I haven't filmed a video in about a month now because I've just been using old backlog of videos that I filmed and never edited, but I wanted to do a TBR for August because I haven't done one for a few months. I've been mood reading a lot and I actually have a lot of great books lined up, so I thought I'd talk about them here. So the first book on my TBR is the Aeneid by Virgil. This is kind of the Roman equivalent to epic poems like the Iliad and the Odyssey. It's a grand poem. It was originally told in verse. This is a translation in prose, and it details Aeneas's escape from Troy and his subsequent journey across the Mediterranean to the place that would eventually be called Rome. I've read sections of the Aeneid before, predominantly for Latin GCSE. I studied book 2, so I am very excited to read it and to rediscover the kind of world of Roman epic poetry. I am quite a big fan of Roman poetry, however the things I really love are love elegies. I have really enjoyed reading the Iliad and the Odyssey over the last few months, so I am really looking forward to it. I then have some middle grade on my TBR. Unfortunately, one of them is quite geared towards winter, but I'm still gonna read it. Maybe it'll cool me down if August proves particularly hot. But that is Never Tell by Catherine Orton. This is a story about two children who are escaping from a prison camp in a snowy wilderness, and they're chased by a witch and her pack of wolves, who I think might be made out of ice. It's maybe not the perfect weather to read this in, but I'm still very excited to read it. I still think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I really like polar fantasy. I don't read enough of it, so I thought that this would be the perfect one to start with. We then have a book I started a while ago in December and never got any further with because I just wasn't really in the mood for it. That is The School of Good and Evil by Soman Chainani. This is the first book in quite a long series following two girls who are taken to this school where people are taught to either be good and heroes or heroines of stories, or taught to be evil and taught to be the kind of the wicked witch, the giant, etc.
Hello darkness, my old friend.
So this happens every 4 years, and this year these two girls are taken, and one of them has been determined to be taken. She's been preparing for it since birth and she is determined to be a princess. The other one less so. She's kind of taken. Everyone in the village assumed she would be taken because they all assume she's evil. However, when they get there, there seems to have been a slight miscalculation because the blonde one, who everyone assumed would be the perfect princess, is put in the school for evil, and the one who lived in a graveyard and who everyone assumed would be a witch who would end up living in a candied house and eating children for dinner gets put into the school for good. I think from what I've heard, it's one of those books that like shows that what is on the cover of someone is not necessarily, oh my god. It's one of those books that shows that what someone looks like does not mean what they'll be like inside of them. So I am very excited to read it. I then have the Believer-Form book of the month that I really want to read, or last month's book of the month. It is The Ship of Shadows by Maria Kuznia. This is about a girl who desperately wants adventure, and one day she gets it when this mysterious ship called the Ship of Shadows, crewed only by women, turns up and kind of whisks her away on a marvelous magical adventure. I've heard really glowing reviews about this book from everyone who's read it, so I'm just very excited to read it and I really cannot wait to get my hands on a copy. Next we have Exit West by Machine Hamid. This is, I think, magical realism. I am not entirely sure. It might be fantasy, but I know it is about this world and suddenly doors appear everywhere and all the kind of dispossessed people who are being chased away from their homes by war, poverty, famine, they all go through these doors and end up in other places around the world. I don't know too much about it, and I'm quite glad I don't know too much about it, but I'm very excited to read this. It's another book I've heard amazing things about. Okay, then I want to read Death Note Black Edition Volume 1. This is volume 1 and 2 put into one, I think. It's a manga. It's got a really beautiful art style and I'm just very excited to read this. I know this is about a really good student who is incredibly bored and one day he finds a notebook that gives him the powers of a dark god and he uses it to try and rid the world of evil. So I'm very excited to read this. I've never watched the anime. I think there's an anime, but I really want to read more manga and I thought that this one was a good one to start with. It's one of the ones that I know is very popular and I know that a lot of people on the book-to-net really enjoy, so I'm really looking forward to it. And then we have two YA novels that I want to read this month. The first is Warcross by Mary Lou. This is a sci-fi novel about a girl who I believe is a kind of bounty hunter in a video game or a hacker, and she gets taken to meet the She gets taken to meet the creator of the game in Tokyo and is asked to be his spy in an upcoming tournament. So yeah, I'm really excited. Okay. And then we have the final fiction book that I want to read that isn't for a book club, and that is The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This has been touted as a mix of This has been touted as a mix of Les Mis and Six of Crows, so that sounds amazing to me. I know it is a retelling of Les Miserables told from the point of view of Eponine, which I assume will mean it cuts out most of the beginning, but I'm still very excited to read it. It's set in a Paris that has, or a Paris-like city that has revolutionary guilds, each one catering to a specific type of person. So on the back it says, to protect themselves, the city's wretched formed 9 guilds: thieves, beggars, assassins, gamblers, mercenaries, smugglers, prostitutes, opium eaters, and men of letters. And again, that sounds really interesting. It sounds like a really interesting premise for the world and I'm just really excited to read it. Also, this book, Naked, is a sight to behold. Oh my god, look at that. So shiny. And the line as well. We are now getting into the non-fiction I want to read this month. I then have 3 non-fiction books I really want to read, and then I have 2 that are recommended reading for the course I'm starting in September, so I'm planning to read them this month. I'm going to start off by talking about the 3 that I'm reading for pleasure, and then I'll talk about the 2 that are recommended. With the 2 that are recommended reading, I think I'll probably just read the blurbs of them because I don't really know what they're about, or I don't know what they're about well enough to give a proper synopsis. So the first book is Black and British by David Olusoga. This is the history of the role Black people have played in British life. It begins, it says on the back, in Roman Britain, and it goes through all the way to now and looks at the way that Black history has shaped the nation. And I'm really excited to read this. I think it's going to be really interesting. I really like David Olusoga as a historian. He did Civilizations a few years ago with Mary Beard and Simon Sharma. It is quite thick, so I might not get through all of it this month, but I'm going to try. If I don't get through all of it, it will definitely be in my September wrap-up, if not my August wrap-up. Then I have The War and Disabled People by Ellen Clifford. This is, again, non-fiction, and this is about the way the Tories have stripped away the rights of disabled people based on a UN report from 2016 and following that through and looking at what they've done since then. And the subtitle is Capitalism, Welfare and the Making of a Human Catastrophe. It's going to look at the way that the welfare state and the NHS have failed people who are disabled and the way that Tory cutting of funds has failed them as well. It does at the beginning have, which I find really useful, a list of acronyms because I am really bad at acronyms. So it's got about 3 pages of lists with the abbreviation or acronym on the left and what it means on the right, which I'm going to find really useful and might put a tab in so I can easily flick back and forwards to it. So this is the second non-fiction book that I'm reading for fun. I realise I say for fun when they're both quite heavy topics, but I think they're going to be incredibly interesting and books that will have quite a major impact on me, so I'm very excited. And the third book on my non-fiction list is slightly lighter, and it is The Fate of Rome by Kyle Harper. I say slightly lighter. This book is about how Rome fell, but specifically how pandemics, global catastrophe and environmental changes helped the fall of Rome. And I'm really interested to read this as well. It's a book that my grandfather recommended to me. My grandfather listens to a lot of books via Audible these days, and he listened to this one a few weeks ago. He is a historian and he recommends a history book. I normally pick it up. So I'm going to be picking this one up. Yeah, the subtitle for this is Climate, Disease and the End of an Empire. So maybe not light reading, but Again, I think it's going to be really interesting. It'll be quite interesting to see the parallels between this and the world we're living in now. Just in general, I'm very excited, and also it's blurbed by another one of my favourite historians, Tom Holland, who says, beautifully and often wittily written, this is history that has some of the impact of a great work of dystopian science fiction. And Tom Holland is a historian whose work I really love. I've read Rubicon and Persian Fire and half of Dynasty, and I really love how his work is really engaging, and I'm hoping that this has the same engaging tone and the same really easy to read style as Tom. And then I have the two books that I am not reading for pleasure, but that I am instead reading for school. As I said, I'm going to be reading the blurbs of these out because I have no idea what they're about, or I can guess what they're about, but I feel like reading the blurb will give you a more generalised overview. The first is What is History by E.H. Carr. And there's a bookmark in this, not because I've begun reading it, because that would be too productive, but because that is where the actual text starts, as opposed to the many pages of introduction and introduction to the second edition by another author. And the blurb of this says, the facts are like fish on the fishmonger's slab. The historian collects them, takes them home, and cooks and serves them. In answering the question, what is history? E.H. Carr's acclaimed and influential bestseller shows that the facts of history are simply those which the historian selects for his scrutiny. His fluent and hugely wide-ranging account of the nature of history and the role of the historian argues that all history is to some degree subjective, written by individuals who are above all people of their own time. I am really interested to read it and to see the way that bias shapes history. The two books I've read for recommended reading have both had a very strong hint of no matter what you say, you're going to be biased, and therefore your bias is going to shape history. So I'm really curious about this book that asks really the fundamental questions. And then finally, the final non-fiction book I'm planning to read this month is Empire and Political Culture in the Roman World by Emma Dench. This blurb says, this book evaluates 100 years of scholarship on how empire transformed the Roman world and advances a new theory of how the empire worked and was experienced. It engages extensively with Rome's Republican Empire as well as the Empire of the Caesars, examines a broad range of ancient evidence, material, documentary, and literary that illuminates multiple perspectives, and emphasizes the much longer history of imperial rule within which the Roman Empire emerged. Steering a course between overemphasis on resistance and overemphasis on consensus, it highlights the political, social, religious, and cultural consequences of an imperial system within which functions of state were substantially delegated to, or more often assumed by, local agencies and institutions. This book is accessible and of value to a wide range of undergraduate and graduate students, as well as of interest to all scholars concerned with the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. So it sounds interesting again. It does sound fairly dry. It's quite short. Both of these books are quite short. This one in particular is only 200 pages long. But those are the 5 non-fictions on my TBR. I'm really excited to read all of them, probably learn a lot. I do then have 2 other books I want to read, because what is Helen if not incredibly overambitious? So these are both for readathons. The first is for the Middle Grade Monthly, which is a readathon hosted by Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin and Jade from JD Ray Reads. And it is The Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste. And I know next to nothing about this book. I think from what I've seen, it's a middle grade horror or a middle grade gothic novel, so I'm really excited to read it. As I said before, I'm really interested in getting into more middle grades, and I really like horror, or I'm beginning to really like horror, so I'm really excited to read this. I don't think I'm quite at the place where I could read any adult horror yet, but I reckon I could get through a middle grade one. And then I also want to read for the Hotties Book Club Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid, which is another book I really want to read. The book is about the performative aspects of allyship and how allyship can kind of become a competition. It's about 2 white women and a black woman, and the 2 white women kind of fight with each other over taking mentorship of the black woman to prove that they are more woke, and it looks like a really good book. So there we have my entire TBR. There's 15 books on here, which is a lot. Please let me know what you're planning to read in August. Please let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought of them, and I hope you have an amazing reading month. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!